Good morning, welcome to DIREITO GV, and let us start our work today. First of all, I'd like to thank the presence of all the speakers and participants. It's your presence here that will make this a great event. Globalization in its economic, political, social, and cultural dimensions has transformed not only the way goods are manufactured and consumed all around the world, but also the way most services have been provided. This latter service transformation is comparatively more recent, but it is also more drastic for the way professional practice is organized within and without national borders. The rise of the modern state, coupled with the bourgeois and industrial revolutions, transformed social organization. They created a need for professionals with specific skills capable of meeting the technical and intellectual demands on the new industrial mode of production within the geographic space defined as national state. The globalization of services connected to this mode of production has, in turn, created the need for new professionals and corporate entities. This has deeply affected the way the professional world is being organized worldwide. In other words, we live in a world in which the circulation of expertise and the creation of new opportunities, or to use a fashionable term today, new ventures, is getting increasingly more intense, pushing down the limits so far imposed by states and trade blocs. If we add the new development models staged by countries such as Brazil, India, and China, we end up with an even more intense process, and this for at least two reasons. First, such countries have started attracting international attention as foreign investors and business people see in them conditions and opportunities not to be found elsewhere in the world. Second, these countries have very distinct challenges which arise from their vast territories, market, regional differences, and extreme poverty, which still plagues sizable portions of their population. In the case of the legal professions, which are a key factor in the globalization process, the scenario is even more complex. And that is because law professionals are responsible for designing and building up the regulatory tools essential to the functioning of global markets, as well as those aimed at safeguarding fundamental rights. Within the legal profession practice, globalization affects a wide range of services, from the formation of the new professionals capable of coping with national and foreign demands, public and private, to the formal recognition within multilateral arenas of the professional expertise of lawyers and consultants. This is the central goal of the research project Globalization, Lawyers, and Emerging Economies, which DIREITO GV has been developing in partnership with the Harvard Law School program on the legal profession, University of Wisconsin Law School, Koguan Law School at Shanghai Jintao University from China, and Center for Policy Research from New Delhi, India. Focusing in 9 different topics, the research project intends to map the gains and challenges to legal education and professional practice in Brazil, India, and China, and the way both education and practice have been affected by globalization. To do so, the project will cover, among others, the following topics: legal education, the building of legal capacities in international and transnational business disputes, pro bono and public interested law, and general in-house counsel. Although the research in each country is organized according to common guidelines, The challenge for each national team is to clarify and discuss the different impacts of globalization in each country according to their different local legal traditions, peculiarities, and intricacies. Today's meeting, which is the first open meeting of the research project in Brazil, brings together representatives from different areas of Brazil legal education and professional practice so that we can have an in-depth, broad discussion of our gains and challenges in this area. That is why DIREITO GV would like to thank each and every one of you for your presence, while it reaffirms its commitment to two of the pillars of its research and teaching project, namely the development of a new curriculum and the development of teaching methods which, by enhancing students' critical awareness of Brazilian and international problems, may help form legal professions apt to become positive agents for political, economic, and social development in Brazil and in the world. As one of the pioneers teachers in this project, with full-time dedication to research and teaching, I share the belief put forward by Professor Ari Osvaldo, founder and former Dean of DIREITO GV, and renewed by the current Dean, Professor Oscar Vilhena, that no good research and no good teaching can be carried out by those who lock themselves in their academic offices. It is vital to dialogue with qualified professionals and to create positive, ingenious solutions to the complex challenges we all have to face. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite Professor Oscar Vilhena to say some words about it.
Good morning, all of you. It is a great pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. I know we have a very intense day with tough debates ahead. It is a peculiar moment to do this debate here, and the role of the university is not to evade this moment, but to face this with objectivity, with impartiality, and I think this is the role of our school, a school that is not trying to hiding itself when it faces problems. I will make just a short presentation of our school, because I think most of you know, but there are some people in the room that perhaps do not have a perception of the role of this school in the Brazilian legal education system. Just for you to have an idea of the challenges. I will stand up a little bit. Of the challenges ahead of us. Here we have 1991, when we have 165 law schools in the country. That is a little more than 20 years ago. Today, we have 1,080 law schools in the country. Just for a comparison matter, we have in the United States around 220 law schools, if you don't count California, which is a little Brazilian style and more messy. If you take India, you don't have more than 600 law schools. If you take China, then you have much less law schools than in Brazil. So it is amazing what happened with the legal education system in Brazil in the last 20 years. But obviously, this doesn't represent the real story when we're talking about forming real lawyers. From the 600,000 law students that we have at the moment in law schools in Brazil, 80,000 achieve their diplomas every year, but less than 20% pass on the bar exam. So this is the reality of those who are being placed in the market. The legal education is mostly traditional, doctrinal, by the books. It is very parochial, as in most societies around the globe. Parochialism is not just a Brazilian disease in legal education. And I think this is the context and the challenge that we face about 10 years ago when Ari and Carlos Ivan, the president of the foundation, decided to create this law school. What is the vision of the law school? I think it was the vision there. I learned from Ari, and it's still the vision today. First of all, that we have to build a new model of a law school, a cosmopolitan law school, a school that prepare young lawyers to act in a completely different environment, in a globalized environment. And we understand globalization here not just as a competition among economic agents, but as a competition among states, their legal systems, their legal institutions, and most of all, for us, a competition among legal cultures. So we cannot just adapt ourselves to a network of more internationalized law schools. We have to act as an autonomous agents in this group of cosmopolitan law schools. And I think several steps are being done, and I will talk a little bit about this later. Second, we made a completely shift in the way we teach law here. We are oriented to problem solving. I think Ari was in some way successful in doing something that Santiago Dantas 50 years ago reclaimed as the most problematic side of our legal education. And, oh, okay, I'm sorry, yes, 50, 54, 56. And even Oliveira Viana in the 30s criticizing formalism. So I think the legal realism that we are doing a kind of a legal realism movement in Brazil from DIREITO GV. And third, we have a deep commitment with Brazil, with solving Brazilian issues, with understanding, thinking, and providing new solutions for most of the Brazilian problems. So the strategies are here. It's a student-centered institution. We have full-time professors, as Luciana mentioned before. This is also a revolutionary thing. Why? Because most of legal thinking in Latin America has been provided by lawyers, by actors, by people who are directly interested on the results of conflicts. Here, for the first time, we have professors that are not impartial. As we know, professors are never impartial, but at least they are not driven by the market forces explicitly. So an independent group of people thinking about the legal system in Brazil. We made a completely change on the curriculum, taking the general theories from the way of the students on the first year, which were very upsetting for them because they learn what they could not learn at this moment. So we provide with basic instruction on issues that they could understand, remembering that our law students arrive here when they have 17, 18 years old, just after high school. So they don't have a college education before. And so if we put ordinary issues first, theory later, the idea of a globalized education is always present. So global law is in the first moment on this law school. Also the methods, what we call constructive methods, using a lot of the attention and the involvement of the students to build their own capacity. Well, our substantive issue is development, but development from a new perspective that not just reproduce the old developmentism, but with a notion, a clear notion of the sustainability in terms both of social, environmental sustainability, and also economic sustainability. So most of our professors are researching the impact or the relations of law with the notion of sustainable development. So we have to understand the complex problems. We have a lot of interdisciplinary research and teaching. And just a tribute to Luis, we are increasing more and more clinics as a way to make students more able to deal with reality. Finally, our research here is done both in terms of individual research, but more and more we are trying to put professors, master's students, or undergrad students involved in centers where they produce collective research. We have several collective research groups, one in business law, one in constitutional justice, crime and society, fiscal studies, financial institutions, and now we have a new center on applied legal research, which is seen as the think tank of the law school. In other means, a group of researchers that decide politically what they will research, why they will research, trying both to measure the quality of the legal institutions in Brazil, the quality of the rule of law, the quality of the democracy. Luciana is heading one of these research, the now famous index for the trust on justice system, and also to organize policy papers to influence the public debate. So this is, in a very short presentation, some of the characteristics of the law school, and this is the law school that is being engaged in this debate at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Oscar. I would like to invite José Luiz Freire to say some words from CESA, Centro de Estudos da Sociedade de Advogados no Brasil.
Well, good morning. To take first things first, I want to first thank the Getúlio Vargas Law School, Oscar, Luciana, and also my good friend from Harvard Law School, David Wilkins, for their invitation to be here today and say a few words opening what I'm sure will be a very interesting seminar. Just to clarify, CESA is an association, a national association of Brazilian law firms. It counts more than 1,000 law firms in its membership. We are not a regulatory body. We're just an association of law firms which meet to discuss their problems. Well, the challenges, opportunities, and threats are many for the legal profession nowadays and have an impact on how law schools prepare their students. In another seminar held a month ago here at the GV Law School, I said, the legal market is constantly changing everywhere in the world, and the legal market in Brazil is no different. The new demands imposed by the market put a lot of pressure on the lawyers, not only on the new entrants, but also on all the existing legal community, and on the law schools that have to prepare professionals adapted to the new market demands. The topic of the first panel, following these opening remarks, will discuss the global lawyer. So my provocative question is, will law schools from now on have to prepare their students to be global lawyers? In my view, the so-called globalization of the legal profession impacts only a small part of the profession, the part of the profession that works in cross-border projects. The vast majority of the profession practices within a national boundary and therefore practices purely local national law. So in my opinion, law schools in each country have to prepare the students to practice primarily the law of their home country jurisdiction. For those who wish to practice in cross-border projects, law schools will have to offer some cross-border training. This is not to say that pure local lawyers do not have to acquire new skills that are demanded from the local market. They do, if they want to differentiate themselves in this local market. On one hand, local lawyers, for instance, have to have an in-depth knowledge of the business of the client, namely in regulated business. Local law firms have to create multidisciplinary groups with lawyers that combine their own area of expertise with the business knowledge. Law firms have to be managed in a business-like manner, and although one can hire professionals to manage the firm, it is essential that at least a group of partners have sufficient managerial skills to lead the firm from a strategic perspective. Law schools like Harvard, for instance, offer the opportunity of such training. On the other hand, what I call cross-border lawyers have to have cultural and linguistic skills in order to converse with clients, at least in English, since English has become the worldwide business language, but in addition, also in the native language of the foreign client or the adversary party. A civil lawyer has to have good knowledge of common law principles and vice versa. In my opinion, however, and here again the provocation, there is no such a thing as a global lawyer, one who is able to practice in all jurisdictions. Also, because another angle to the so-called globalization of the legal profession is that some jurisdictions are more regulated and others are less regulated. There will always be people advocating to be less regulated and other people who will advocate to be more regulated. To regulate the legal profession or to regulate other professions is a right that has been exercised by the vast majority of the countries, even those countries which defend deregulation in other countries. Brazil is one of the countries that has exercised its right to regulate professions in general, including the legal profession. According to the current legislation, both local lawyers and foreign lawyers have to pass a bar exam in order to practice Brazilian law. Foreign lawyers, prior to taking the bar exam, have to validate their foreign degree. The Supreme Court, by the unanimity of its members, has recently reaffirmed the constitutionality of the bar exam. It is the general view in Brazil that the current regulations of the legal profession are quite liberal for foreign lawyers vis-à-vis the majority of the countries. It permits foreign lawyers to validate their degree, pass the bar, and practice local law, and it also provides for the registration of foreign lawyers as foreign legal consultants. The current regulations are not against any treaty to which Brazil is a part, including WTO rules and regulations, as some try to argue. It is crystal clear that Brazil is not a sub-country because it regulates the legal profession, because it requires both local and foreign lawyers to pass a bar exam, to practice local law, and because it prohibits the direct or disguised ownership of Brazilian law firms. The regulation or deregulation of any market is partly driven on both sides of the claimants by economic interests. But in the case of the regulation of the legal profession, there are other reasons to regulate, such as the role of the lawyer in a given country, the ethics of the profession in that country, which vary from country to country, and other important cultural drivers. It is also very important to realize that deregulation affects all different lawyers in a given country, all different layers and practices of the legal profession, and therefore is not a gift that may be given to a very privileged group of law firms that work in cross-border transactions. It is a very serious and important matter for the whole of the legal community. Closing my remarks, I wish you, the attendants and the panelists, a very good seminar and a very good discussion.
Thank you, José Luis Freire. I would like to invite David Wilkins from Harvard Law School to say some words in this open.
Desposé no fala português. It's very important that I begin this way because it's a great privilege to be able to come to your beautiful country and be able to address you in my language. Not only that, but to have almost everyone here who is a native Portuguese speaker address me in my language. That is a privilege. It's a result of the globalization that we seek to study, but it's important to remember, as my friend and my former student, I'll tell you about that later, Jose Luis just said, there is no universal language. We don't speak Esperanza, as some people may remember. And there's no universal legal system or legal culture. So when we study globalization, it is very important that we are studying, as Luciana said, both the global and the local at the same time. A friend of mine calls it glocalization, just to put the two words together. That is the goal of the project that we are so honored to be working with FGV Law School and Dean Vieira and former Dean Matos Filho here, and many other law schools around the world in our project, which we call Globalization, Lawyers, and Emerging Economies, or GLEE, as we like to call it. I'm looking at the younger people. Do you watch GLEE here? Which is the name of a popular TV show. My colleague and collaborator, Dave Trubeck, who is the master of the acronym, came up with that one. GLEE is, at its core, a multidisciplinary, multi-jurisdictional, empirical research project. Each one of those things are critical. We do not believe that it would be possible to study the phenomenon we hope to understand without building a collaborative research team that includes not just lawyers, as the dean said, but many other disciplines who look at the phenomenon we're interested in. So from economics to sociology, political science, anthropology, cultural studies, all of these are critical to understanding the way in which globalization is affecting the market for legal services in these critical new emerging economies. And of course, it must be multi-jurisdictional. It must be not just multi-jurisdictional in what we study, but who is studying it. And it's why it's critically important that we have such spectacular collaborators here in Brazil. The main reason that my colleagues from America and I are here is to meet with a terrific group of Brazilian scholars who are already on the ground helping us to understand and shape our research, not just here in Brazil, but around the world. And we have similar collaborations with academics in India and in China, and we're actively considering looking at other parts of the world. But at its core, it's a collaboration among people from around the world, each of whom have unique and important experiences and insights to bring. One of the things that is already so clear is that much of the innovation that will shape the global market for legal services, both globally and locally, as my friend has pointed out, is going to come out of dynamic economies like Brazil. Just look at FGV Law School and all of the innovative things that it is doing that are becoming a model for the rest of the world. And finally, we are deeply committed to this project being empirical, which means that our primary goal is to create objective, independent, systematic information about the changes we all know are going on around the world. There is, as we all know in this room, much heated rhetoric about the issues of the day. And there's a reason why it's heated. There's much at stake. There's much at stake for each country, for lawyers in each country, and for all of those who depend on lawyers. We should never forget that law and lawyers do not exist just for the benefit of the legal profession or even for the benefit of legal academics. It exists for the benefit of those who depend upon the goods that the rule of law and only the rule of law can provide. There is much at stake, and so it's not surprising as globalization comes to the legal profession that there are strong feelings. But what there hasn't been enough of, I think we would all agree, is objective, independent research upon which people can base the various arguments and reach the conclusions that must be reached about how this process will work. We, as academics, are not in a position to make the judgments or the decisions about what will happen. That will be made by governments, it will be made by bar associations, it will be made by regulatory bodies in the international sphere. But what we can do is to help make it an informed debate. And that is why I'm so thrilled to be here among such a distinguished group of scholars and practitioners and policymakers. We must have a conversation if we are to ever have an opportunity to make the best judgments that we can on these critical issues. In the GLE project, as Luciana said, we intend to study a broad range of issues, ranging from the development of large and important and prestigious law firms that has happened here in Brazil, of which my friend Jose Luis is one of the founders of one of the most important ones, whether it's the rise of important in-house counsel, of which we have a terrific representative here, whether it's new organizational forms of legal practice, of which we also have terrific representatives here who we will hear of, who are innovating in a way that really is changing the legal marketplace, or whether it's thinking about the issues of professional regulation that have already been raised, and my guess is will continue to be raised, not just here but around the world, or looking at how globalization is not just transforming the cross-border lawyers. I agree, I understand why you say that, Jose Luis, but in some ways globalization is affecting everything and everyone. The way it, we have a project, for example, that's being done on the effect of globalization on small-town individual practitioners in India as they deal with land acquisition claims that are coming on behalf of the large multinational corporations and Indian corporations as they move out into the Indian countryside. The same thing is happening in China. I'd be interested to hear if the same thing is happening here. We're also interested deeply in how law is affecting the public interest and the public parts of the profession. And we're very honored that Louise Trubeck is here with us because she is helping to shape the way in which we're thinking about how the globalization and the market for legal services evolving is affecting the public interest of law, the public practice, or the way in which important countries like Brazil are developing legal capacity to represent themselves in the institutions of global governance, whether that be the WTO or investment arbitration. My colleague Mihaela Papa is here, is heading up that effort. I don't want to go into detail because I'm really here to hear from you, but I just want to give you a sense that of the range of issues that we're talking about. And in the end, what we hope to achieve, which is really three things, one of which is represented here, which is to convene the best people to help us to think about how to understand these issues. What should we be looking at? What are the questions we should be asking? We don't assume we know the questions, let alone the answers. We really would love to be guided by your judgment. The second, of course, is to go out and to work with many of you in this room to develop the information that can at least provide the objective information upon which answers could be given. And to do this work, as the dean suggested, you can't stay in your office. You can't look up at the ceiling and think what great ideas you have. You must be out talking to people. But that means people must talk to you. And so for those of you who are practitioners and policymakers, I urge you to collaborate with us, to talk with us, so that we can together make sure that we have the right information upon which these debates will happen. And finally, and perhaps the most important thing, Dave Trubeck and I talk about this all the time, we hope this project helps to create people who are globally fluent in a way that none of us, at least in my generation, have been before, who understand how to talk across divides, who understand the importance of the global and the local, who understand how to think in a new way, the way I think that we will all increasingly need to think if we're going to tackle the difficult problems that globalization, lawyers, and the changing boundaries and shape of the world present for all of us. So for all these reasons, it is a tremendous honor for me to be here, to be able to speak and listen in my language, and to have such tremendous hosts here, both among academics and the practitioners and old friends who are here. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the conversation.